most powerful henchman to collect it. Scourge.
Get ready to witness the epitome of cinematic malevolence as we count down the top 35 supervillain entrances in movies. From spine-chilling reveals to jaw-dropping moments of pure evil, these iconic villains know how to make an entrance that leaves an indelible mark on the silver screen.
You're going to regret that.
Blue Beetle was one of the most recent movies that came out of the DC Universe in 2023, and it might have received some criticism, but we can't deny that this moment when Carapax first arrived is worthy of this list. If it wasn't for Blue Beetle's abilities, then the girl would have gone out cold, because Carapax was going in for the kill with that first punch. This man is a true advocate of gender equality because he didn't even hesitate. Not to mention, the way his suit activated was as cool as Iron Man activated his own suit. Although, it does look a little bit more painful. Imagine implanting something on your spine. I mean, that's gotta hurt, hasn't it? The entire fight, it looked like Blue Beetle was entirely at a disadvantage because this man was packing some firepower like he had the power of America on his side. Bro even had super strength and was able to ram a car towards Blue Beetle back and forth. The effects were good and the design of the OMAC suit Carapax was wearing looked like it came straight out of Halo. It's a strong start, but stick around because things only get crazier.
And he sent his most powerful henchman to collect it. Scourge.
Now, this one is just brutal. In the Transformers series, we always see the Decepticons being blown up, but we rarely see the Autobots being killed. However, Rise of the Beasts made sure that even in the beginning of the movie, things would be a little bit different this time. Scourge arrived with his Scorpion minions and instantly just rained fire and hell on Optimus Primal. The way Scourge also came out of the forest still walking was practically just a flex, showing Applelink he wasn't even in a hurry. Applelink said he was going to buy some time, but bro was instantly defeated. I mean, why didn't he even transform into his humanoid form? Scourge just two-tapped him and the battle was done. And if that wasn't enough, Scourge took Applelink's badge and attached it to his shoulder, where we also saw the badges of other Autobot groups and even the Decepticons. This bot just hunts everyone, and no one's safe. What made this entrance even better was that Applelink was supposed to be that planet's strongest warrior, and it just looked like fodder.
Benefits of serving the almighty Unicron.
From looking like the taxi driver from Deadpool to looking like the next manifestation of Satan, Sabak probably has one of the coolest transformations in this list. He just looked perfect, and I think they even had some inspiration from Hellboy. There wasn't some crazy action scene, nor were there a lot of things being blown up. It's just one guy in hell being chosen as its champion after being blasted by hellfire. I just love how they also teleported him underwater too, just to add that dramatic effect of him literally making the ocean boil. Did you also know that Sabak stands for Satan, Aim, Belial, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, and Cratius? They're super powerful demons, and I love how they did that. Overall, I just have to say this entrance is cool as hell. Pun fully intended. Enough of Sabak, because now we have to hang out with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. First of all, the animation is just on another level here. It's unique and creative that it just fits the movie perfectly. Superfly and the mutants arrive, and when do you ever get to see the villain rock up in one of the sickest rides of all time? Even if it did have no back wheels, but that's besides the point, okay? The Turtles even thought that they were the ones doing the surprising, but we all knew it was over when they turned on that radio and let out some beats. It wasn't just badass, but it was a music video all in one. If there was a competition for the most fire supervillain entrances, then this one would be number one. They even did that classic superhero pose at the end just to add the cherry on top. The character designs, the music, the animation, the camera angles, every single thing was on point here. This entrance was definitely Superfly. See what I did there?
What is that?
What's happening? Peter, what is it?
If we're talking about shocking entrances, then Electro from Spider-Man No Way Home takes the cake. He just popped up behind Peter and made sure that his entrance was electrifying. Like, come on, they didn't have to go that hard with the music. His manifestation was insane to watch, as even Peter's magic webs just passed right through him. The moment his eyes opened up, it was a clear sign Peter should have just run as fast as he possibly could. When he fought back, Peter couldn't do anything but just dodge, because what would you do if a man made out of electricity started shooting lightning bolts flying at the speed of light towards you? He even did a 2-1 technique, blitzed in front of Peter and landed a point-blank range hit. There was also some mystery involved because we didn't even know which Electro was which made it a lot better. I was personally on the edge of my seat and I agree with Peter. Why were they even telling him where to go? The scene rocked me up like thunder. Okay, alright, I'm gonna stop with the Electro jokes now. If you thought Steppenwolf was a menace, then you should meet his boss, Darkseid. Before he even came up, every last being in that room bowed before him, which just goes to show how feared and respected he really is. Bro's face even made Steppenwolf remove his helmet and go on his knees. Yes, that Steppenwolf that decimated a ton of Amazonians. That speech about him and what he did just to look for the anti-life equation was just cold. Imagine turning 100,000 worlds to dust. How powerful do you have to be to do that? One thing I did notice was that Darkseid's bold. Do you have to be bold to be strong? I mean, Thanos and Darkseid practically look the same, don't they? Anyway, even if it was just for a moment, Darkseid's appearance set the stage for the entire battle that was about to come. He may have lost during his first conquest of Earth, but now he might just come back and make sure the job gets done properly. Now we just have to ask the question, who has the biggest kill count? Thanos or Darkseid?
I'm on a mission.
What mission?
Peace in our time.
Moving on now, Ultron's entrance is just creepy at the beginning, isn't it? Not a single Avenger, even Tony Stark, knew what was happening. And when Ultron announced that he killed someone, well, my heart just sank because we all knew it was going to be Jarvis. Ultron's appearance and the way he talked were kind of disturbing too, because he's not your typical supervillain, is he? He was confident, intelligent, radical, and most of all, he was deadly, and he knew it. He finished his speech and then bam! More robotic suits came bursting out and attacked the Avengers in what was supposed to be their holiday. Ultron has got to be the worst party crasher yet. Well, at least he gave Bruce Banner that moment with Natasha, a true bro indeed. And yeah, I agree with Ultron, that was dramatic. Ultron is one of the rare villains that we actually knew posed a threat to humanity as a whole. And if you know what he did, then his actions basically culminated in a superhero civil war. It'll send chills down your spine, and the quote, "You want to protect the world, but you don't want it to change," just hits a little bit different. Okay, so if Ultron was a threat to humanity, then Galactus actually puts the entire galaxy in danger. In the first few seconds he appeared, he was about to dissolve Jupiter's rings. Now, you've never seen a supervillain do that before, have you? No, Galactus is not that huge cloud, he's actually behind or inside it. He's so big that he's larger than Earth itself, so basically, he's God at that point in time. He doesn't only eat planets like it's a Sunday barbecue, but can take out the entire solar system with minimal effort. If it wasn't for our bro, the gnarly Silver Surfer and his surfboard or unlimited power, then the Earth would have just been another meal for this monster. We never actually got to see him, but only a glimpse of his shadow in his helmet. But what that means is that even if he never truly made an entrance, being on this list alone just shows how awesome this moment is. I only wish we got to see him in the next movie, but if you know, you know. Next up, we have when Carnage broke free in Venom. Carnage truly lived up to his name because it was non-stop violence from beginning to end. It was like a scene straight out of Jurassic Park, but this time, you can never outrun the T-Rex. I actually laughed a little bit when I saw that one guard came at him with a pistol, because realistically, what are bullets gonna do? Give him a massage? Carnage was stabbing, smashing and killing every guard in its path. That other guard said he had a family, but Carnage just straight up showed him that doesn't work in this movie. The way he shoved his tongue inside that man was disturbing on so many levels. He even made that tornado, which I didn't expect to happen. The Warden was lucky enough to be alive for that long too, but getting your head eaten is still a better way to go than that guy who got killed with Carnage's tongue. It was a no-mercy killing spree, and it was awesome to watch. Imagine being in that chrono bubble, thinking you're the only one able to enter it, and then someone just rocks up and punches you in the face. Dark Flash was cold, wrapping up Flash in that purple lightning. If you haven't watched the rest of the movie, then this scene is just confusing. Trust me, I know. The reveal of Dark Flash being the old version of Barry was shocking. Bro really lived the entire 14,625 scenarios Doctor Strange was talking about. This entrance was just surprise after surprise after surprise too, since he was trying to kill his younger self to end things once and for all. This was also one of the rare moments in the movie where the CGI was up to par with most AAA movie titles, and Dark Flash's costume design looks a lot like Savitar. Honestly, he was probably one of the most interesting Flash villains of all time. It's kind of sad. We only saw him for a while. Nevertheless, this entrance made the movie even better than it was supposed to be. The next one is a classic that I hope future generations will still see. The T-800's arrival in the 1984 Terminator movie was iconic, and it gave birth to an entire franchise that used the same character introduction style. I just want to know how it felt for Arnold Schwarzenegger to walk butt naked in that city. But did people really look like those goons in 1984? Who in their right mind thought that blue hair and face tattoos were good? I only thought that existed in the 2020s actually, although you can notice it was old. This one aged like fine wine, and I just remembered how brutal it really was. Arnold just punched right through that guy's guts, but we still don't know what happened to that guy that was driving the truck. He was an absolute unit. Apart from being iconic, it was actually a great entrance that had a lot of impact on the entire movie, and Arnold's acting is so underrated because he made the role perfect for him. Remember when I said Steppenwolf decimated the Amazons? Well, this was the scene. Steppenwolf just jumps out of the water with his minions and instantly goes for the box, and in the meantime, the Amazons are showing us just how hardcore they really are. The moment when they used the rope and arrow to take the box away from him was golden, but Steppenwolf ain't the ambassador for gender equality for nothing, because he never stops. Steppenwolf was also great. He's not cringy, he's direct, sadistic, and just showing everyone that true oblivion is about to come. Even his armor was a lot better than the original one. He just looked a lot more menacing and dangerous. This scene was action-packed and so thrilling that we have to admit, Zack Snyder is the guardian angel of DC. I mean, you actually see Amazons being killed, and they weren't just being thrown around. This is actually how terrifying you would imagine how these villains should be, and that, unlike the cartoons, blood and death follow their every step.
Today we unite our kingdoms. Tomorrow we scorch the surface!
From one battle to another, we have King Orm in the Battle of the Brine. Bro's entrance was just cold because you don't get to see a prehistoric dinosaur just bite a giant humanoid crab in half. The entire battle was on a scale we haven't seen for a while in any other superhero movie actually. Mostly, we just see a group of 5 people just duking it out in a hallway somewhere, but now this one actually really feels like war. While thousands clashed, Orm was just slicing and dicing every crab in his way until he met the Brine King, and if it wasn't for that giant crab mech, then the battle would have ended right there. Both their lines were cold, with Orm wanting to be called Ocean Master and the Brine King just refusing to give his allegiance. It was just pure destruction from start to finish, and it must have cost them at least half of their budget just to make this one battle. Aquaman proved that he may be one of the most memed superheroes of all time, but his movie is one of the best in the DC universe. number 22, we have to include the moment En Sabah or Apocalypse awakened in X-Men Apocalypse. You can really feel that bro was actually dead in the beginning, because no dead man would just wake up without having to take a deep breath and inhale that 1,000-year-old dust to the point where his eyes became white. As he lifted up the rubble, those cultists didn't know what was coming because, well, all that praying just got them killed, didn't it? That's why you never pray to triangles inside ruined caves, kids. Especially make sure you stop when it starts glowing, alright? I also got to give some recognition on how much balls she had to just wait and see what happens, because I would have run when I heard people down there. This entrance sets the stage for the entire movie and gives us a glimpse at how powerful the villain will be. Jean even had a nightmare about him, which just goes to show how scary he really is. It was only right that they killed him though at the end, because no one's gonna bag Storm but me. I always thought that Wonder Woman was just insane saying Ares here and Ares there, but it turns out we should always believe what a badass woman says. Honestly though, Sir Patrick Morgan was the last person I thought was Ares, and if you remember, Ares was the one who hit Darkseid with his axe in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Ares draws power from conflict, and what better place than the First World War? But why does he need more power? Well, because in this movie, he's nowhere near his prime. Everything became even more epic though when he created that badass armor and fought Diana wielding 2 swords. It was like he went from level 1 bard to level 100 warrior all of a sudden, and we all know he added the horns just to look even cooler. His entrance was fire both literally and figuratively, as Wonder Woman, the one who just strolls through no man's land, doesn't get hit by machine guns and blocks bullets using her bracelets, just gets blown away. This entire entrance is just badass and we all love it. You and your grandma should have seen this one coming, because this is another iconic entrance that deserves to be on the list. People start cheating and the Green Goblin rocks up and starts blowing the building MJ's on while Peter's there just looking up. My man doesn't care whether his girl is about to be killed, but he does save that random couple. A neat Easter egg is that you get to see the man, the myth, the legend, Stan Lee. We also have to acknowledge the fact that Green Goblin here is a villain through and through. That bomb that turned almost everyone into skeletons was insane. William the Legend perfectly played Green Goblin to the point where he was the villain of 2 Spidey movies. This moment is truly sinister, because when do you get to see someone catching Spider-Man's punch, telling him impressive, and then just kicking him into a pole? Yes, you'll notice that the effects aren't as good as what we have for now, but for its time, everyone's mind was blown away at just how good this scene was. Lucky for Mary Jane though, this wasn't the Spider-Man movie where she bangs her head while falling. From the classics, we're now going to some of the newer ones. We all know Wakanda as this impenetrable high-tech city where even special forces can't stop them, but Namor and his men don't care. I mean, their songs are strong enough to make people jump into the sea, and they don't have any mercy, even if they're medics. These guys were even riding killer whales. The way Namor also comes out of the water and then proceeds to one-tap M'Baku was something else. You also have to know that M'Baku is one of the strongest there is. I mean, Namor is so badass that when the Wakandan Air Force strafed them, he didn't even move and proceeded to take out plane after plane after plane. Just from his first appearance, we already get to see how overpowered he is and how much of a threat he is to Wakanda, to the point where he was able to attack the Queen herself. He's the perfect villain for this movie, and I just can't stress that enough. His motives also make sense, not to mention that his backstory fits too. If only T'Challa was alive as well. Rest in peace. We already know the genius, millionaire, playboy Tony Stark, but there was one villain in his movies that made such an impactful entrance. At the Monaco Grand Prix, Whiplash decided that it was time to crash an entire race and just instantly destroyed an F1 race car that Tony was in. He even did that slow-mo superhero walk with explosions in the back, like how the Power Rangers roll. Whiplash, by far, has one of the coolest supervillain techs, and if he had enough practice with it and wasn't too cocky, it could have ended much worse for Tony. I just wish he had some armor too, so that wasn't being pinned down by a Rolls Royce. Other than that, this entrance was solid, as he was able to show Tony that even if he looked like he came out of a Mexican jail, he was all about getting that smoke. The way he kept hitting the ground with his whips, making the screen light up, was a nice effect that they added in. Overall, I like Whiplash, especially since he has the worst real supervillain name of all time. Does he look like someone who's named Mickey Rourke?
都是同一个人。
Let's go away from the Western world and travel way out to the east and meet Xu Wenwu in China. Even in real life, we've all heard just how badass Asian warriors are, but this supervillain just takes that to a whole other level. The first time we saw him, it looked like there was going to be one large battle, but this man just stopped a rain of arrows with the rings and took on those Middle Eastern swordsmen like they were nothing. He's basically what would happen if you mixed Whiplash and Doctor Strange together, you know. I feel bad for that one guy who was choked and head slammed into the ground. His army is pretty badass as well. They went from horseback cavalry to using M4s. This does make you wonder, why do supervillains have entire armies behind their backs and not heroes? I mean, if the Avengers had a private military with them, they could have probably used the power of American gunpowder to nuke Thanos. Anyway, Xu Wenwu is your classic supervillain who lived for a long time and did some badass things along the way. Speaking of supervillains with armies, this guy, even after he was defeated, still had some psychopaths who wanted him back. Voldemort's return in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire was horrifying to watch. We all thought everything was good after Harry and Edward from Twilight won the Wizard Hunger Games, but they were teleported to a graveyard, and that's when things felt really wrong. With just one Avada Kedavra, Edward was gone, which was so shocking, and from being a fetus, Voldemort had returned. I never expected for Harry Potter to become as dark as this, and I'm not gonna lie, the series became a whole lot better. I just wish these people weren't afraid of using killing curses, because come on, how much damage does Expelliarmus really cause? This scene wasn't only horrifying, but straight up bone-chilling, because it looked like the end of times was near and Harry was in big trouble. People were so scared of him, they didn't even say his name and just called him He Who Must Not Be Named, or You Know Who, and now he was back and ready to create some chaos. From start to finish, this entire entrance scene was just action-packed. There's no way you'd go ahead and try to kill Nick Fury if you aren't confident that you're going to win, and the Winter Soldier indeed was as confident as anyone can be. After blowing up Nick's car, he even just walked towards him, like he was confident that he got him and he couldn't escape. Sadly, he did underestimate this one-eyed legend because ain't no one gonna kill him. Bro didn't even flinch when Nick's car was flying in a fiery mess towards him. He just moved until it was just about to hit him because that's how cool he really is. Not to mention, this was one of the coolest outfits I've ever seen any villain wear. Sebastian Stan did an amazing job in making it feel like the Winter Soldier is actually a threat to the point where they can target the man that gives the shots at S.H.I.E.L.D. So we've got two villains from Captain America back to back. This time we have the iconic Red Skull. Quick Easter egg though, if you watch The Winter Soldier then you already know what it is, but if not, well, just sit tight. When he took a punch from Cap and even dented his shield, we already knew something was up with this guy. The way he peeled off his skin and showed his true face was shocking as hell. I mean, you rarely get to see people who actually have a skull with eyes. He's not like Ghost Rider that looks cool, but you can clearly see why he decided to become a villain in the first place. Another thing to note is that apart from superhuman strength, Red Skull is intelligent and charismatic. That's why he also has an army on his back. You know what I mean? Do you think it's just that villains have invested more points in their charisma stats than heroes do? The way Red Skull also cared for the Doctor is something else, because most villains, they just leave him to die. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, Magneto might be one of my favourite villains, and his entrance right here proves that I made the right choice. Bro casually arrives, opens the train up and makes Wolverine suffer like never before. Wolverine might be immortal, but he can't do anything if his opponent is the perfect counter. It's like when you're playing Pokemon and you're the fire type while your opponent is water type. Even the police had nothing else to do but just watch as Magneto lifted their cars, and as if that wasn't bad enough, imagine your gun being pointed at you. Magneto is just a menace, isn't he? He's literally teasing Professor X to kill him. We always knew that old guys were overpowered, but he's just built different. That's why you never play around with the grandpa next door, because you might find out that it wasn't worth it at all. If Magneto wanted, and if there was no one stopping him, Bro could literally take over the entire world all by himself. Maybe environmentalists were wrong after all. Maybe plastic is the way to go. Sure, having metal inside you and fighting a guy that controls metal is bad, but imagine fighting a literal planet. That's what Peter and his gang went through, and they weren't prepared for it. Ego's manifestation wasn't just an entrance, but it was literally a world-changing event. You get what I mean? Bro went from nothing to skeleton to human, all the while taking out every member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. After that, he even unleashed his abilities on different planets, killing possibly millions. I was wrong. It was a universe-changing event. This man had no chill. His kid just went rogue on him, and now the entire universe is at stake. But this was just the beginning, because if no one stops him, then I bet you don't need to ask who has the highest supervillain count anymore. I mean, if Peter wasn't his kid, he might have just killed everyone all in one go. The music, the transformation, the thrill, the intensity, but most of all, the villain is just godlike.
Please put down the spear.
Marvel just doesn't stop, and this one's another banger from the Avengers. We all knew who Loki was because we saw him in Thor, but the way he arrived in the middle of S.H.I.E.L.D. all smiling and just decided to kill everyone he sees is badass. I mean, we even saw that he was bulletproof. There was also that guy whose back was broken after he hit the wall. Not only did he kill most of the people there, he even took control of Hawkeye, a literal member of the Avengers. If you hadn't already noticed, this was also the second time Nick Fury was involved in a supervillain entrance on this list. Bro has the worst luck, and this time Hawkeye shot him. Going back to the moment, Loki even did that speech about freedom being a lie, which was just so perfect because it was also related to the abilities of the staff. Do you know why the Avengers were so popular? Because they had an epic villain fit for an even more epic movie. It's rare to see two entries about the same character, but this time we don't only have the same character, we have the same actor. The Green Goblin and William the Legend strike again in Spider-Man No Way Home. He literally got transferred to another universe and just thought that it was time to ruin Spider-Man's life again. He even used the same tactic where he just blew stuff up, and if it wasn't for magic, then maybe No Way Home Peter would have been in so much trouble. Seeing him in his iconic green armor, his laugh and his theme gave me that sweet dose of nostalgia and made me travel back in time to 2002. I was so creeped out because of him back then, and he had that same impact here too. It may have been less than a minute, but it does hit the spot. If you want to find a villain that you don't want to hate, it's got to be Green Goblin. Spider-Man villains are just built different because they've almost taken over the list at this point, haven't they? This man was also in No Way Home, and right now it's his time to shine. These doctors were laughing, and that was until Doc Ock made every single one of them fly around the entire room. I'm sorry this was supposed to be scary, but that Asian nurse screaming for help while her nails literally ripped off the floor was hilarious to me now that I've rewatched it. That aside though, this was the stuff of nightmares when I was younger. These arms were brutal, and even if we didn't see any gore, those screams while they experienced pain and suffering made the moment even more intense, you know? The camera work and the editing were top-notch, because this is what happens when you let a horror movie director take control of a superhero movie. If you also notice, there's no background music, which just seems eerie, even when I'm watching it as an adult. If that wasn't shocking enough, And this had me leaving my mouth wide open because I can't believe this just happened. Just imagine an entire cinema room gasping when they saw this. Sure, we all knew Hela was bad and powerful, but we didn't expect it to be this strong. All this time we thought that Mjolnir was indestructible and Hela just held it with one hand and destroyed the weapon that made Thor into the overpowered god that he is. That line though, saying that Thor doesn't have any idea what's possible, is so cold. I personally think that Thanos just started finding the Infinity Stones after both Odin and Hela died, and maybe that's just how strong these two really are. She even told two Asgardian gods to kneel in front of her. Everything about her just screamed dangerous too. I guess the colour green does make a supervillain that much stronger because look at the Green Goblin, Hela and Voldemort. Oh, and Loki too. Kinda, I guess. Speaking of overpowered gods, there's one being that was played so dirty I feel the second-hand embarrassment right through the screen. But his entrance though was just one of the best supervillain entrances of all time. He might not have been the main villain, but he for sure was the reason why they added the word super before it. Dormammu is so big that even Doctor Strange is smaller than his eyeball. He's also so strong that the man called the Sorcerer Supreme practically died in every way possible before he just got tired of killing him. If Doctor Strange didn't activate his checkpoint before his boss fight, then the entire MCU universe would have ended then and there. Even if he was the one trapped in a time loop, bro even made the first demands. I mean, if you could disintegrate the strongest sorcerer in existence using your breath, you could basically demand anything.
Set me free!
No.
Yup, this is the reason why Thanos waited for Hela and Odin to pass away, because if they were here, things would have ended differently. But they weren't, and so Thanos rocked up and made Thor suffer some more, as if this man wasn't already as depressed as a kid that dropped their ice cream. What makes this even more sad is that we actually got to see Loki and Thor be brothers again, and Thanos just arrives and ruins everything. We instantly get to see the carnage that unfolded. A ton of familiar characters were killed, including Heimdall. They killed my boy. Thanos definitely is just the big boss of the Avengers series, and even if he faced the Hulk, which by the way Loki thought would win, it was like watching Rocky in his prime box a complete amateur. Never have I seen a Marvel scene that included one big defeat for the heroes. This was one opening scene I wish I didn't have to see because it just hurts watching it.
Child you met yesterday.
So now that we could say that Doctor Strange is the magical Nick Fury because this man can't take a break and keeps meeting the most overpowered villains of all time. This time he's up against Wanda, and finally the heroes have an army of their own. Not that it matters though. The way Wanda came out of the smoke was just intense, and the way she defined what mercy and being reasonable is for her proved that she's gone way too far. Imagine if she was this strong during Infinity War, Thanos would have just gone poof. I mean, it took almost every mage in Kamar-Taj just to defend against her attacks, but she's just way too much of a menace. They literally ran after she went inside their minds, and they used the cannon for God's sake. I didn't know sorcerers used cannons in the first place, but even if they did, this wasn't a battle, it was a one-sided massacre. Wanda was a beast, and there ain't no way we won't add this.
I'm not from here.
We've only seen one animated movie in this list because, well, it's quite rare to have something animated to be so good, but Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse broke the internet and proved that animated superhero movies are still packing some heat. After all was said and done, Miles was tied up in front of a man who first looked like Frozone from The Incredibles. Miles was even talking all about the Prowler, but what he didn't know was that he was already talking to the wrong guy. And when the true guy came out, it was more shocking than seeing Loki die because the Prowler was no one but himself. The music, the animation, and the intensity of that moment were just fire. This literally gave me chills, and I had no words to describe what was happening. I don't want to spoil anything else, but just give this movie a watch. You will not be disappointed.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
If we're talking about shocking scenes and supervillain entrances, then this one is S tier. Bro literally thought he was the one calling the shots, but well, how the tables have turned. That speech though, and his iconic line was something else. After all these years, this scene is still phenomenal. You know you're a supervillain when you outsmart Littlefinger from the Game of Thrones. Not only do I have to commend Bane, but I have to give props to his goonies that dived, attached themselves to a moving plane, and successfully rescued their boss without a single casualty. It's like these guys were trained by the best of the best, but oh well, a supervillain always needs a super team. It wasn't only a great entrance, but an even greater escape, and throughout this entire thing, Bane was just as chill and as enthusiastic as he could be. For him, it looked like just another Sunday picnic.
Now's not the time for fear. That comes later.
Stranger.
We may have more Marvel entries here, but we can't deny that when DC does right, they just turn out to be legendary. If it wasn't for the first entry being more iconic, this has got to be the best supervillain entrance of all time. The Joker's bank heist was impactful not because it had flashy CGI or a lot of explosions, no. It became one of the best because of how it catches you by surprise and shows us how genius the Joker really is. This wasn't only a supervillain entrance, but also the opening scene for the entire movie. Imagine watching the movie, and in the first few minutes, you're already thinking you're at the climax. The robbers were talking about the Joker, but they didn't know he was already with them. Everyone was betraying each other, but still, the Joker had the last laugh. It was a legendary scene for a legendary movie with a legendary character played by a legendary actor.
What bus driver?
And at number 1, a supervillain entrance that defined not only a generation, but the one after it too. Darth Vader in Star Wars A New Hope wasn't only a beast, but he was the devil itself. Stormtroopers came rushing in, actually hitting rebels, but when Darth Vader entered the ship, we all knew things were just about to become darker. Even his breath felt like he was sucking the life out of others. Nothing comes close to the two words iconic and supervillain than Darth Vader himself. This, children, is how you introduce a villain. This is how you introduce the villain. And all he did was just talk into a white room. Now that's what you call an unforgettable supervillain entrance.
What have you done with those plans?
We intercepted no transmissions.
Hope you liked the video, so please like, share and subscribe to the TV Regent. And here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.